It's Stephanie. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Unwritten because, as we all know, life is unwritten. We don't know what our future holds for us, and we have to take every day and make the most of it. Super excited to have Jack Glennon here today. He is a business and leadership coach out of Australia. And what I love about Jack's story is that he's been through a lot in life, but he keeps finding himself and reinventing himself over and over again. And I'm not gonna say too much, so, Jack, thank you so much for coming on the show today, and let's hear a little background about you.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you so much, Stephanie. I'll do my best to keep up with those levels and that standard. But yes, my name is obviously Jack Glennon. As you probably picked up from the accent, originally from the UK. I'm now based here in sunny Brisbane, Australia, and have been over here in Australia for around 15 years now. I made the decision at a young, early 20 age to up and leave the UK and find myself in another part of the world because I found the lifestyle that suited me a little better. Obviously, that came with its challenges. And along that path, found various roles in my career that really put me on a journey of, I guess one can say, self-discovery, but also certainly challenges along the way. But I've certainly found my passion in leadership, training, capability building in people and working closely with people, whether that was in hospitality, in tourism, which was a quote unquote fun job for a while as a scuba diving instructor, all the way into the corporate world and working in fast moving consumer goods more recently.
Yeah. Thank you for, that background. So I have to stop 1 second. I'll take that off. I don't know, I just heard a noise. Okay, so thank you for the background.
No
Now,
dramas.
when we chatted, some things have your life has kinda turned around in the last, I would say, 6 months. Is that correct?
Mm,
It's been pretty recent. Can you
it
kinda
is.
talk about that a little bit more?
Absolutely. And I'll put some context into it. So, as I'm sure you're aware, and that your audience will be aware, the world has gone through a bit of a financial quote unquote crisis over the past 6, 12, 18 months. Now, with that, multiple organizations, businesses, and companies have had to find ways to continue to grow in some cases and also to survive. The way they do that is obviously cost cutting, and with that comes redundancies or layoffs, as it were. So I experienced the unfortunate path of redundancies early this year, and it's an extremely difficult thing to go through for everyone. And actually, before I carry on, I actually want to call out, which might surprise you, the other side of the coin, because I had some time to reflect when we caught up the other day. I think it's really important to call out and empathize with the people that are doing the redundancy. I'm not sure what they're doing, but the people are having to have those tough conversations because whilst many of them don't necessarily get it perfect, and you'll certainly hear examples of that, the ones that mean well and try their best have not only my respect, but also my empathy and understanding. Because my God, it must be a rough thing for them to go through, having conversation after conversation after conversation with people who are seeing the worlds around them crumble down and dealing with a lot of confusion, a lot of pain, a lot of heartbreak in many ways. Anger can come out as well. So I guess before I started my journey or wanted to share my story, I wanted to call out the flip side of the coin that probably doesn't necessarily get mentioned um, in this conversation.
Yeah,
So
that's really true. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all human, right? And we all have to do hard things and
that we do. So there's another element that I want to call out that adds to the potential damaging or trauma when you're dealing with redundancies and layoffs, which some people might experience in larger organizations that have quote unquote a culture of family. And it's a trope that I'm quite passionate about because I've not only experienced and seen the damage it can cause, I've also, and I'll hold my hands up to this, bought into it, drunk the Kool-Aid, if you like, and sold it. So if I said to you a family business, what would that say? What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
A business that provides for my family, that uh, I'm part of, and I'm
Mhm.
treated like family.
I love that answer, by the way. That's brilliant. Um,
And what did you
when I
think it was? What? Yeah.
Oh, it's tricky for me because I've experienced both sides of it. I think the traditional sense of the word of family business is, I spoke to someone the other day and had the same conversation. They went, oh, I've got an image of an Italian deli with Nonna and Papa, and you've got the son and the grandson, and it's very quaint, but it's you got fresh mozzarella and all these beautiful things. And I love that image. And the more of those that we have in the world, I think the world will be a better place,
Yeah.
and a nicer place and more authentic. Um, there those are brilliant. Those are fantastic. The transition comes when you're dealing with national or global companies and organizations that, as part of their culture, because culture is everywhere, they have a trope of we're a family. That can be incredibly dangerous, and that's on two fronts. One, the reason behind them doing it is psychological, to get you to work more effectively. And this isn't wanting to come from a cynical sense. It's actually just this is the way the animal works. If you understand this and keep your head around it, you're going to be much healthier. Because if you get into that mindset of we're a family, we're all in this together, oh, well, I'll go that extra mile. I'll miss, I won't be able to make dinner with my partner tonight because work really needs me and it's family. So that's okay. And I'll give you an example of how much people can buy into that by my own experience and my own fault. I do reflect and go, what an idiot. It's quite an extreme one. Back in 2020, I experienced some health issues and I had to go into hospital for some heart surgery in the middle of all this COVID stuff that was going on. And I remember I went in on the Thursday for the heart surgery. And I woke up on the Friday. It all seemingly went well. I had wires coming out of everywhere and things stuck on my chest as they do. And I brought my laptop with me. That seems normal if I brought my laptop to watch Netflix or videos or movies or play games or anything else. No, I brought my laptop to work. So the day after heart surgery, I'm sat there or laid there even, opening up Microsoft Teams, opening up SharePoint with literally wires hanging out of me doing work. And I remember dialing into Microsoft Teams and the HR director at the time saw I was online and went, what the hell are you doing? Rightly so. And I explained, look, I'm okay, I'm up and about, I'm healing, I'm fine, I've got lots to do. Da, 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 da. And whilst it went back and forth, they basically went, okay, something I can do what you want, basically. Now, in reflection, now, I was a pillock, a moron, because what are you doing? It's the day after you've had heart surgery. Rest, heal. But also, the organization has a responsibility to its employee. If their employee isn't listening, and it's actually clearly going to be detrimental to their health, unplug them
Yeah.
from the system. That's the right thing to do. That concept would have never entered my mind. And in family businesses, it doesn't. That's the first danger, and that's whilst you're there. The second one, which never gets spoken about, which surprises me, to be honest, because I think it's more dangerous, is when things go wrong. And when corporations and organizations behave like corporations and organizations, because that's what they are. And there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that if you go into it knowing that, such as disciplinary action, conflict of interest, redundancies, these things that happen on a weekly, daily basis around the world. When they occur with the additional trope of this is my safe place, this is my family, nothing will go wrong. I might be having problems at home, or my pet might have passed away, or I've got problems with my family. It's okay, work's safe. When work suddenly on a dime becomes unsafe and breaks up with you, maybe in such sort of psychologically ways,
Yeah.
or goes or suddenly becomes the enemy, the damage it can cause to people's mental health, their emotions, is unprecedented, and it can cause people to go, to have long-term mental issues, whether that's depression, anxiety. It can cause issues in further employment. I've known people to literally still be angry 5, 6 years later after leaving an employment, and that you can see that bitterness holding up to them because of that flip.
Yeah.
So I wanted to call that bit out, and I don't know if you've heard anything about sort of family organizations or that trope, the damage, but it's quite important when going into the journey of redundancy I had earlier this year because it was another element.
Yeah. Um, it's an interesting topic just because I know somebody that was in a family business, an actual mom and pop. It was a
Yeah,
restaurant and it was a family and those feelings, and then it got bought by somebody else. And so, yes, you're hitting on some really important topics that I'm not a part of, but I think it's a really important thing to talk about because it is you. It's almost like your foundation is now broken.
yeah, and there's bits of advice that I'll leave your audience with towards the end, but they are all around understanding your place in work and in life into a certain degree, and the balance that comes with that, because it is a balance of knowing especially in the corporate world, if you like, of knowing the animal and how it works and how it runs, and
Mhm.
being corporately savvy. I think you might hear that term thrown around quite a bit, but not so much that you're cynical and bitter, because then you're not going to be a good employee, and you're not, that's not healthy for you or for them. If you're going to work every day going, oh yeah, they're pushing this cultural trope out again, and well, I'm going to, push against that. That doesn't have actually longevity about it as well. So you need to find that balance, being aware of it, being psychologically strong, and being able to see things in action. And one thing which I'll definitely say a lot later on is to not take it personally.
Yeah.
That is so key. Take it professionally. And that brings us on to the wonderful events of earlier this year. So when you're in the corporate world for a while, or in any business, like it could be a small mom and pop shop for a long time, as I was, you get a feeling of the pulse of the body of the animal, if you like. And a friend of mine or a colleague of mine, I'd say back in September, August, we spoke and we're like, something's going on. We don't know what, but you can just get that sense that's, I think the term something's going down was definitely thrown around. And this continued to progress over the next few months, and questions were asked of people in higher up positions. What's going on? What's going to happen at the end of the year? And so January, February, March. Oh, nothing, it'll be fine. We'll let you know when we know, and fobbing off, etc. And things became a little bit clearer into January time, going, something really is going down. A couple of people have left already, and there's meetings behind closed doors with certain individuals, and it was clear something big was coming down the pipe. Now, in every country, when it comes to layoff and redundancies, a business has a legal obligation to follow certain guidelines and rules and processes. And anyone that goes through a redundancy or layoff, I would 100% encourage them to look on their government website and make sure that they are across what the business should be doing from a legal standpoint, just so you're covered. And that's not going us against them or you against the business. That's just being sensible. I will commend the organization where I was at. They did follow it pretty much by the T. From a process standpoint, from a handling standpoint, big hit and miss. And one of the areas that I talk to a lot of people about, and a few businesses that I'm doing some work with, is emotional intelligence. And the lack of emotional talents that was shown in many cases was quite shocking. And when dealing with something like redundancies and layoffs, you need that to be at the forefront because you're dealing with people and people's lives. And I'll give you an example that you might need to hold your jaw. So, when one of the first things a business needs to do when they decide they need to go down the route of mass layoffs or redundancies is they need to provide everybody in the business context of this is something we've looked at for the last 6 months, for example. This is how the structure looks now. This is what we're proposing. And it has to be a proposal because they have to allow employees to come back and fight for their position, give an alternative solution, and have consultations, basically. Apply for roles that now are available that weren't before, all these things. So what the organization that I was at did was rightly pulled everyone together, whether it was in a virtual sense on Teams or in the boardroom. And the managing director at the time took us through the structure of this is before, this is after, by each area of the business, whether it was logistics, whether it was finance, marketing, etc. They started with the executive team, including themselves. So this is what it's going to be like before, what it's like after. And the comment that followed drew the biggest silence that I think I've ever experienced in a boardroom, because the managing director in this forum said, so this is the structure before, this is after. And obviously, you guys, you can see, thankfully, I've still got a job. That is a comment that is so bereft of emotional intelligence when you are delivering effective news that people are losing their jobs,
Yeah.
that you saw the whole room drop. You saw everyone online go, no. So what did they just say? Because there's so much emotion in that moment. People are trying to process everything that's going on. And it continued towards the end, when it finished off with the term, trying to make light of the situation. I think they said something like Happy Friday. After... Yeah, exactly. Now, I'll add a caveat to this. I don't think there is anything. There's no maliciousness in the individual. I don't think this person's a bad person. I don't think this. I'm sure they look back and reflect and go, I wish I did that better. I hope. But that was an example of a complete lack of EQ that did so much damage in the process and made it so much harder for the people, for the HR department and the executives that had to go out and deliver the news on a one-to-one basis, because you already had people offside because of that behavior and that approach. So that was a tricky one. For me specifically, the situation was actually quite simple, because often in these scenarios, you have people going, well, my job's going, but I can apply for that one.
Yeah.
So I've got options. What do I do? This is all confusing. I don't know what to do. Should I take the offer? Should I leave? Should I go? Should I stay? Ugh. Scary. My scenario was quite simple in many ways, and because I'd already moved my family for the business a few years ago, and to continue, I would have needed to basically move again. Something which I made clear to the business nearly a year prior that wasn't viable and wasn't going to happen. So I, in many ways, had already put my flagpole in the ground. And when this came up, it was a no. It was really a non-conversation. Saying that, I won't lie, it was still absolutely heartbreaking to see the after me not there, my name gone. And my role as a national manager, I had a team, I had a family, if you like, that I cared dearly about, and I was no longer going to be part of that. And there were so many levels to process within that. Firstly, identity is a huge one. Because when you throw yourself into something, and I'm someone who always did and will continue to do so, just in a slightly probably more balanced way, it becomes your world. And so much so that it can become part of your identity, which is great in some ways. It's fun, and it can be a proud moment, but it can also be dangerous. And I remember when I first joined the organization, within about 6 months, I had a client who emailed me and said thanks, and he called me the company name Jack. Say I work for Tic Tacs, so he said thanks
Mm.
Tic Tac Jack. And I remember forwarding that to my boss and being so proud. And he was like, "Oh, awesome, Tic Tac Jack. That's cool, wicked." And that name stuck
Mm.
within the company, within people in the industry, within friends. Da, 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 da. So I'm now 8, 9 years down the line. That name's going to die. So who am I? Also, from a health point of view, I recognized that for the previous 12 to 18 months, when you wake up in the morning and your first thought process is one you can't control. You open your eyes and you go, wow, I didn't sleep well. Or, oh, that was a weird dream. Oh my God, it's hot. Or you're still snoring, whatever it might be. For 12 to 18 months, my first thought process had been something related to the business every day. Not Monday to Friday, Monday to Sunday, every day. And more often than not something positive. So it was going to be a huge shift, a huge shock. Who am I without this? What's my purpose? What am I getting up in the morning for? What's my drive? What am I going to do? And my family, the people really close to me, that I literally have spoken to every day for the past 8, 9 years and seen, albeit in a virtual world, every day virtually for the past 8, 9 years. Will I see them again? Will we stay close? Am I going to lose that? What does that look like? Heartbreaking and really scary in many ways. So for me, and on for many other people, there's also the financial element, which I'm grateful because I was there for so long. I put a financial plan together. I didn't have that pressure, which I'll explain when I sort of tell you sort of the process that I took post the redundancy. But the process itself, you're also left with a decision of how long you stick around for. And you see many people do both extremes. You see some people, because they're emotional, they feel uncomfortable, it's not right for their mental health, and they go, right, I'm out. I'm taking the deal and I'm gone tomorrow. And when I'm explaining this, there's no judgment on my part whatsoever. People are entitled and they're absolutely their right to make the decisions what they believe is right for them. The caveat I'd add to that is if you decide to up and go there and then, do it for the right reasons and be aware that the people and the friends that you're leaving behind, you might be making it harder for them because they've got to pick everything up. But I equally understand why people do that.
Yeah.
There's also the other end of the extreme where people can hang around for too long. Normally with redundancies, if you're a decent employee, you've got a good relationship, they go, look, you're going to finish on the 31st of April, whatever it might be. And, you know, we want to do the right thing by you and vice versa. And to be fair to the organization, they did that. But I was very aware that because it's like a breakup, you need to get to the point of you need to move on. And so do they. As a leader, it got to a point where they would need to stop coming to me and start going to this person because otherwise it becomes unhealthy.
Yeah. And
So
painful.
exactly. So I highlighted a timeline, I think about 3 weeks, where I would write a full comprehensive handover to effectively my replacement, who was going to then do two jobs, mine and someone else's, to make sure not only my integrity was held high, I could leave with my head high. No bridges were burned because I don't believe in burning bridges. No door is ever closed, which is part of the reason why I don't mention people's names or businesses. but also to set that individual up for as much success as possible because I still care. And I care about the team that I'm leaving behind and that they're going to be as okay as possible. After I've gone, there's nothing I can do. I'm always on the phone, absolutely, but I understand that's quite hard for them to pick up the phone after I've gone to ask advice and support. I get that's conflicting, but I wanted to do the absolute right thing. So I managed to find a bit of a medium to do that. And when leaving, for myself, I managed to leave with my head held high, and then the process begins.
Yeah. It seems like when you're talking about all of this, it seems exactly like a bad relationship. A relationship
Mm,
that's started out really great and plans for the future. And
very much so.
slowly over time, it just didn't work out, and nobody knew how to end things because you know maybe I've been there once or twice, but it's it's a painful process,
Mm.
and it sounds like it had to be so painful that you wouldn't go back, correct?
Absolutely. And I don't think, again, reflecting now, and once I explain the process and where I'm at now, um, if they called me today and offered me double the money I was on to come back tomorrow, I would say no.
Right.
Not in its current guise. It's not the right environment for me right now. Is that door closed to that business forever? Absolutely not. Again, I'm never one to close doors, but in its current guise, how it is right now, it's not the right place for me. And in again, looking back, I look back and go, it's not the job or my team whatsoever. I love the job that I was doing. I love my team, and I would probably too much do anything for them. But everything else, the environment, the culture in many ways, leadership to a certain degree, was I happy in those three areas for the last 12, 18 months? No. But would I ever leave? There wasn't a hope in hell that I was going to leave on my own terms because it was what I was used to. It was family, it was safe, it was
Yeah.
it was what you do. You carry on and you get through the bad times and it'll come great again one day. Doesn't matter how much damage it might be doing to myself. Didn't see that. You just carry on. So yeah, it's very much can be. That's a great metaphor, great comparison. Is a damaged relationship.
Yeah. So let's chat. Let's chat about the how you came from corporate world and structure
Out.
to you now, and this is the best part.
This is the good part. So the first thing that I knew or what I needed to do was a complete reset because I'd recognized that I'd been in that rhythm psychologically more than anything else and physically for so long. So what I decided to do was and I'm thankful that I have, got work so hard that I was able financially to do this, but also very grateful to my wife to let me go and do this for myself. I decided to go and take a 3-week road trip on my own in America. And the reason for that is I like driving. It's something that I enjoy for myself mentally. Um, it's something I needed to do on my own to force that reset to go put yourself in an environment or environments where you're not familiar and see where you're at. And the trip was brilliant, as all vacations or holidays are, but it had so many moments of clarity and catharsism that I didn't expect. The first one, so I flew into San Francisco, spent a couple of days there before flying out to Seattle to drive down. And I flew in, I think, on the Wednesday. And the Friday, it was horrible weather. It was raining, and the weekend weather was changing into worse weather. So my plans to go east were out the window. So I was having to reschedule everything and get a flight to Seattle early the following day. And it wasn't a good day. And a friend of mine from New Zealand, he messaged me because he saw that I was in San Francisco. And he said, go to this bar, check it out. It's got really cool cocktails. You'll love the vibe. Awesome. I was like, okay, maybe I'll do that later. How to get there, started searching online. Okay, I'll try the bus. That's probably the easiest way. Uber's going to cost lots, so I'll get a bus. I walked out in the rain that late afternoon, early evening, went to the bus stop, and I started feeling anxious and really uncomfortable and going, this is what, yeah, but what if I get the wrong bus? And what if it takes me to the wrong area? And what if I get, and I just went, no, no, too hard. And I went back to the hotel and sat down.
Oh.
And I sat there and went, holy hell. Is your confidence that bad that you can't get a bus? You just flew from Australia to San Francisco. What's wrong? Come on. And it was that moment of clarity going, okay, you're not okay. I mean, I knew I wasn't anyway from everything that happened and, probably dealing with lots of things the previous 12, 18 months with work. But it was that moment of going, all right, this is probably a bigger rebuild job than you thought you had, you know. And traditionally, guys aren't great at looking at their own faults, let's be honest. And that was definitely a moment of going, okay, you've got some work to do, mate. But it was good. The next morning, I had to get up really early to get this flight to Seattle. And I got to the airport and it was chaos. It was just pandemonium. There was bags everywhere. I think someone hit me in the head with their skis. Um, I managed to check my bags in, and I'm someone who likes to be early. That's just how I think everyone's wired. Some people don't mind being late. It gives it just what I'm wired that way. So I hate being late. So I check in, I get into the security line, and it is absolutely chocker. You've got people next, jam packed, and it's 5 minutes until I board. So I'm starting to feel anxious, my breathing's going up and I'm starting to get sort of worried. I speak to the security guard, I think it's a police officer actually, to be fair. I went, sorry, excuse me, I'm boarding in like 5 minutes. He's like, yeah, you'll be fine. Yeah, but you don't understand. You see the big queue here, you'll be fine. Okay. So I wait, move up 3, 4 places, not very far. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for boarding to the flight to Seattle. Okay, I'm going to miss my flight. My bags are on there. What am I going to do? Sorry, sir. I'm fine. I'm boarding now. You'll be fine. No, you don't understand. I'm boarding now. I've got to go. Sir, you'll be fine. I'm not going to take on a police officer in that situation. um, but my breathing's going up. I'm starting to sweat. I get through security and I run. And I'm not necessarily the quickest runner, I'm the first to admit, but I do the full Hollywood jumping over children. I'm going hell for leather, trying to make sure that I get to the gate. Of course, I get to the gate. I get on the plane, and I'm not even close to being the last person on the flight. Not even close. I sit there. I'm next to the window. I'm sweating. I'm heavy breathing and going, what are you doing? We take off and I'm starting to calm down. And I'm someone I think we all attach ourselves to. Some people love hills, some people love rivers, some people love the oceans. I'm someone who loves the oceans and the mountains. Like they just, I don't know, they click a happy switch in my mind. I remember flying over a mountain. I think it might have been Mount St. Helens, and breathing and just going, "You're going to be all right. Don't do that again. You don't need to rush again. It's not worth it. Stop." And I'm someone who's known for going, especially for the last 9 years in my job, a million miles an hour. I said, stop. You're gonna hurt yourself mentally. Enjoy the moment. If you miss a plane, who gives a damn? We'll get the next one. It's not ideal, it's not convenient. Don't be late, but if you control what you can control, if you do everything you can do to be where you need to be when you need to be, and if something happens, you're going to do yourself more physical and mental harm going off the rails about it.
Yeah.
And I made a commitment. I made a commitment to myself in that moment to stop. Fast forward probably about a week. So I'd driven from Seattle down. I went to Mount St. Helens because that was amazing. I'd recommend anyone to go. It's beautiful. And I went to Yosemite, which was another level of beautiful. And I remember driving down from the Sierra Nevada mountains, and I had the sun on my face. I looked at my rear view mirror, and I saw the view of the mountains behind me. And a song came on my Spotify, and I'm of that generation that we were angry teens listening to Linkin Park, and it was a Linkin Park track. And I, like we all do, I'm someone who sings a lot in the car when there's music, or I try to, and probably fail miserably. And it was a Linkin Park song that had lyrics around, in the end, doesn't really matter. You try so hard, you go so far, and in the end, doesn't matter. I think something like that. And I was singing the song like I normally would, and just something just went click. And all these thoughts and emotions and memories of everything that I tried to do in the job, in my time with the business, and in the end, it didn't really matter. I left a legacy, and I'm really proud of that. I'm someone who goes into everything, wanting to leave it better than what I found it. And I did that. I've done that with every job that I've always done, and I'm very proud of that. But in the end, all this, working when you've just had heart surgery, it didn't matter. And all this stuff started to come through. And I started to smile from literally ear to ear. And then tears started running down my face. And it just all came out. And I was laughing, I was crying at the same time. God knows what I must have looked like if someone drove past me. They must have thought I was mental. Um, but it was such a moment of release and catharsis and going, you're going to be fine. You're finding you. And I had a moment the day before, which probably built this up, which was a great moment in Yosemite, where I FaceTime my mum, who's back in the UK, and we talk about things you love and happy places. She loves water. And I was staying next to a beautiful river just heading up to the mountains. And I FaceTimed her and showed her this because I knew she would love it. I knew it was somewhere she'd love to see. And she said to me when I spoke to her, she saw me and she said, this is the first time, and I can't remember how long, that you look like you and you sound like you. And I'm so overwhelmingly happy for you to see you be like you, which was a really special moment. And I probably, at the time, was probably quite flippant. Oh, thanks, Mum. I feel really good. It's really lovely. But I know that flicked a little switch as well that built up the release the next day. And it was brilliant. And it was such a release, as I mentioned, and going, you're going to be okay. So by the end of the trip, it was incredible. I got to San Diego and then went back to San Francisco and flew out. And I came home going, okay, now let's get a plan together. Let's get a plan together of what you're going to do. Financially, I mentioned this before. What I did is, there's a great temptation when if you're with a business for a long time and you get this big lump of sum of money, is to either buy a new fancy car or pay a big chunk of the mortgage off, which very sensible. I wanted to take the time pressure off me. So what I did is I put all of it into our offset savings account, and I paid myself a wage. So it
So
so
smart.
it gave so it gave me time to go, okay, you don't need to jump straight into your job. And I've got so much, I feel grateful for it. I mean, I've worked hard for it, don't get me wrong, but I've got so much empathy and sympathy for people who are working paycheck to paycheck and get made redundant and have to jump straight into that job because they don't have a choice. And I can't imagine what that's like. I really, really can't, because it must be unbelievably tough. And in fairness to them, they're not going to be the best version themselves that straight into that job. And that employer is not going to get the best version of that employee either, because they haven't had time to deal with everything that went down, unless they've been
Mhm.
there for 2 or 3 months, obviously. So that was the first thing that I decided to do. Go give yourself as much time as possible and try and eke this money out to give yourself the time to reset and reprioritize and rebalance. The other thing that I decided to do is give myself structure and discipline to a certain degree, because the very easy thing to do is go, right, get up. What am I going to do? Sofa looks comfy. uh, and don't get me wrong, for the first few weeks after you made redundant, I think that's completely understandable. I think it's,
Yeah.
necessary to a certain degree, but I didn't do that. I went to America, it swings and roundabouts. So what I decided to do is the mornings or up until about 2 o'clock, that was work time. So that included looking for jobs, optimizing my LinkedIn, learning to optimize my LinkedIn. I didn't know what the hell that was. Um, Learning about resumes and how now you have to tailor them to each time you apply for a job because there's a thing called ATS, which is an automated, AI system that scans your resume. If you don't have certain buzzwords, it doesn't go through to the person.
Oh, wow.
I never knew about that. When 9 years ago, it didn't exist. So okay, learning about that, speaking to a couple of business coaches that were good friends of mine, and my mum, who's a business author, to be fair, and getting advice from them, being a sponge, constantly absorbing information and going, what's the best thing to do? And one advice that my mum gave me actually was, you probably it's a good idea to build up your profile and your brand. I'm like, oh, brand. Oh, that's not for me. And she's like, no, I know it's not you. It's not what you want to do. But what about if you use your experience? You've got, you know, over 2 decades of leadership experience in manufacturing, tourism, hospitality, and now FMCG. Write about it. Write about it on LinkedIn. And she really helped me start that process up. So I said, okay, well, I'll write maybe 4 articles or 4 posts every day, which wasn't sustainable. And I ended up tailing it. And now I do too. It's much more palatable for people too, probably. But that was a first routine commitment. Okay, I will do articles every morning. I will job hunt. I will job apply. I'll do interviews. I will commit to doing some e-learning. So try and keep this ticking. So I do an hour course once a week at least. So all these things up until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that's work time. After that, that's for me. So I need to get my health right, physical and mental. So I wanted to lose weight. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm not one that's ever enjoyed gyms particularly. It's not my environment. Fair play, some people do, not for me. But I'm like a dog. I love chasing a ball. So put me on a tennis court or a soccer field, great. So I went, okay, I'm gonna go and play tennis 3 times a week. Awesome. I'm going to start to go for long walks when it's good weather. And so focusing on losing weight. The psychological side, if I'm going to get rid of negatives from that previous life. So I went through my social media and my professional media and went, anyone that's not really got my back or shown to got my back or as a negative when I see them pop up, gone.
Yep.
Because we're not really relationship, we're not a friend. It's not personal. I've got nothing against you, but you're not adding anything to my life, and I'm pretty sure I'm probably not adding anything either. The people who are close to me from the business, I'm gonna reach out to them and say, let's go for coffee, let's go for brekkie, let's catch up, which was great. And anyone positive that reached out to me, I made sure that I found a way to say yes, because they're positive and they mean a lot to me. And with a couple of people, we've now actually got a routine from that previous business, one individual more than anything who's really close. And I do count him as he has transcended from friend to family. I really would do anything for him. And he would for me, and he's shown that, is that we catch up on a monthly basis, hell or high water. That's locked in. That's just committed, which is lovely and wonderful. So you then cover going, it's going to be okay because the people that you've seen so often and had relationships with, they will continue. And the people that didn't have your back really, or live in a bubble, they move on and you move on. And that's okay. And so I started with this commitment of structure and time for me to get me right and find my purpose. And I was like, well, what is my purpose? So I did a few psychometric tests online, as many as I could, because you want a big sample size. And I've really nailed down, which wasn't a huge surprise, that my passion and my drive was inspiring, coaching, training, and developing people. And that's what I talk about gives you the fizz. What gets you up in the morning, So I was like, okay, that gives me more of an idea of what career I want to do, where I'm going to nail down. And then someone gave me the advice, which was brilliant, is work on my non-negotiables. And I don't think any of us are very good at this really, is look at a whole spectrum of things when it comes to work, whatever that looks like. What are my non-negotiables? Could it be financial? I've got financial commitments. I need to be getting an income of that. I can go lower to that level, but that level is it. That's my non-negotiable. It could be a non-negotiable of, sorry, weekends are out. That's time with the kids. Not for me, I don't have children, but I get that.
Cats.
A flex, a flex could be, yeah, I can work hybrid. I don't have to. I've been used to working from home, but I don't mind working in an office 3 days a week. I'm happy to flex on that. That's cool. And being open to any of these things. So it gave me a structure to going into interviews and going for jobs. Okay, I can get all the way down the line to the final conversation. And if this non-negotiable comes up, I'm out. I'm not interested. So
Yeah.
it gave me that clarity. And, I have had a couple of job offers where they came to that. And I went, sorry, it's non-negotiable. Really great. All this stuff's great. But that's locked in. And because that's in my core, what's non-negotiable. Another element which I was given advice was to explore other areas of work and revenue, and it's a tough market out there. You read enough and it's a really, for someone who's unemployed, which, technically I don't work for anyone right now, so technically I am. It is really difficult to find that next job. It's a brutal market. So the other element was to try and find an alternative form of revenue in stream, but also a passion. So ergo, I was like, okay, well, let's look into coaching on for me because it's something I want to do and it's a passion. Whether it's trying it out for free. So I joined a global non-for-profit organization called the Mentoring Club, which is based out of Silicon Valley. Wonderful organization that basically if you're accepted and you join, you can become a mentor, which you can, I think it's up to 3 mentees from around the world that you take on. It's free, but it's a passion that I will continue to do no matter who I work for, because it's part of my purpose, part of my drive. And there's other forums which are for income streams as well, that I put services out there that I can do one-to-one training sessions, coaching sessions, mentoring online with people, which are revenue streams, which also helps with my passion, but is also financial as well, while still constantly looking for that right home and going, it's okay, because you know your purpose, you know your non-negotiables, and just got to breathe and sometimes go, oh God, it's really scary. Why don't I have the right one yet? Because of these things and these things you put in place,
Yeah.
and to be true to yourself.
Yeah. What an amazing story of just finding yourself through something that, when it comes to work and your job, it that was your passion,
Yeah, it
and you're able to turn that around and find passion in yourself.
was my
And
identity,
yeah,
and
and
that's
now
that,
you've
that's the thing.
yeah, and now you've found yourself.
Yeah, and if I can give some people a few bits of advice on that, which I said I'd do at the start. Love your job, but not the company. You can appreciate the company, you can like what it stands for, you can like the brands, the products, but don't love the business. Unless you're a business owner, it's your baby, I get that. But if you're an employee, don't love the business, because you never know when they will stop loving you.
Yep.
If you fall, or when, because we all do in life, neither your boss nor your business or nor the company um, will give you that helping hand. Your friends, your family, the ones closest to you and the ones you can rely on, they will. So that's really important. One which I mentioned earlier, which is so important, especially when it comes to redundancies and layoffs, is allow yourself to feel everything. I go back to that moment driving down and literally everything coming out, um, and to not take it personally, take it professionally. when you're made redundant, it's so easy to reflect and go, what did I do wrong? What could I have said different? Could I have done this? It's not your fault. It's a decision that others have made. You can then put your case forward, absolutely, but don't take it personally. It's not a reflection of you. Um, these moments that are the toughest and that are hard, that make us question ourselves, question our purpose, who we are, they shape us to be better versions of ourselves. And I am so incredibly grateful for it happening in a strange sort of way because of where I am now. And if someone had said to me at the time, in X amount of months' time, or even probably 2 months after it happened, you would be such a good place that you wouldn't come back immediately, I would have never believed them. And I remember I saw a quote from Gordon Ramsay recently, which really resonated with me because it's absolutely spot on. Never fear the storm. Get comfortable dancing in the rain. And it's so poignant and perfect scenario for when the worst happens. The more resilient you are with that, the more true to yourself that you are, the more comfortable you are in dealing with it and coming out the other end. And one last one is in those moments where you're at your lowest and you question yourself, question who you are, you question your value. Have a look around because only in these moments where you're at your lowest, the best people around you in those moments are the truest reflection of who you really are. Because in those moments when you're low and after, they stick around and they're massive. But they do it because of the person that you are as well. That's really important.
Yeah, that's a really great way to end this podcast. So how can people find you, follow along on your journey, and if they want to get in touch with you about coaching, what's the best way to do that?
Absolutely. The best way is probably via my LinkedIn, which I'm sure will include a link somewhere, but I'll be
Yep,
found there. I do also have Instagram as well, which we can include a link, I'm sure, somewhere at the same time. But definitely for the coaching and mentoring, any work that, and my writing, you can find me on LinkedIn.
perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with me today. And I just value your insight so much. I'm not in the corporate world, and you didn't really sell the corporate world on me, to be honest. I'm joking. But, honestly, what you went through, I think it's a really great insight, and I really appreciate your honesty and vulnerability.
Been an absolute pleasure, Stephanie. Thank you ever so much for having me on.
All right. Thank you.